I don't want to be strong like man who look pretty. I want to be strong like bitch that fight bears in the forest.
Welcome to another episode of Bitch vs. Bear with your hosts, Amber.
Me.
And me, Sydney. Woohoo! Co-owners of Shield Maiden Training Co. This is a show where we bitch, laugh, and chat about all things fitness and wellness related to women in the LGBTQIA+ community.
Nice.
Yes.
All right, what are we talking about this week?
We are talking about brewing energy.
Ooh.
Breaking myths. We're talking about caffeine.
Obviously.
Brewing energy. I love it.
I am shocked it has taken over a year for us to do this topic.
I know, right? I don't...
Considering
Considering
you.
me. Yes, I understand. Whatever, you drink caffeine too? Okay, we'll get into it in the episode. But yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we both drink coffee on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Okay, so this episode is not just about coffee. It is about caffeine specifically. Caffeine is the most used psychoactive stimulant across the world. We're going worldwide here.
We're going worldwide.
According to the National Coffee Association, there's a National Coffee Association.
Yes.
Of course
Did you
there
know
is.
that coffee is the second most traded commodity behind oil?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Man, the bell, did you ever play that? The like trading,
Oh, yes.
what
Yep.
is it called? With the bell
Yeah.
pit.
Yes.
Coffee beans is one of the things.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. So according to the National Coffee Association, 60% of Americans drink coffee every day. Not surprising. That number actually feels a little low.
I know. It does.
That's more than any other beverage, including tap water. Wait, what?
Yep.
Wild. Okay.
Which, I mean, I guess I understand because not everybody drinks their tap water. It's
Right,
not saying
okay,
that
yes.
they're not drinking water per se, but...
Yeah.
And also, I would argue that coffee has water in it.
I mean, yeah, that's true. Fair enough. And 85% of people in the US have one caffeinated beverage per day, according to the National Institutes of Health. So not just coffee, but something with caffeine, soda, coffee, tea.
Energy drinks.
Yeah.
All
the things.
Yep.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of caffeine.
That's a lot. Yeah. Yes.
Yikes.
So studies have found that caffeine can do both good and harm.
Rude.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I'm sure as like a coffee drinker, it's one of those things because it is a stimulant and all of these things. People always want to weigh in on like, that's bad for you, right? Or that's good for you. But studies are shown that it's both.
I mean, fair. Lots of things are.
Yeah, exactly. So people who regularly drink coffee may be less likely to develop like chronic illnesses such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and Parkinson's.
Great.
Which is, great for me.
Love that for us.
And some cancers. So like coffee can do some good. We like
Awesome.
this. We
love
like
it. Love
this.
it. Just going to focus on the good.
Yeah. Well, a few studies also suggest that those who consume coffee regularly are less likely to die from heart disease and other illnesses. Of course,
Wow.
there's other, the secondary factors, so it's
Right.
hard to quantify that.
Yeah.
And that's
coffee
why I was
drinkers probably don't exist in a vacuum with nothing else.
exactly.
So there's probably other things that are habits of coffee drinkers that lead to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So this is in moderate doses, of course. So up to 8 ounce coffees. That amount of coffee/caffeine can make people less tired and more alert.
Okay.
Some studies suggest that it can reduce your appetite and lower the risk for depression.
Great. Love
Yep.
it.
But the flip side of that is high doses, so 12 cups or more.
That is so much.
So you have to think about the dosage of caffeine. So 12
Right.
cups is about, a cup of coffee has about 150 mgs to 200 mgs of caffeine. And we're going to get into this a little later because that's really important. The dosage is important.
Well, yes.
So we're using the cups as a quantitative in this section, but
Okay.
further down we're going to talk a little bit about why it's actually the dosage and the mgs that are the important things.
Okay.
So 12 cups or more, I'm putting those in air quotes,
Ooh.
can make people feel anxious, raise blood pressure, and lead to heart palpitations, and of course cause trouble sleeping.
Makes sense. That's a lot of coffee.
Yeah, that is a lot of coffee. That's a lot of liquid.
Right?
Yeah.
These people
So-
must just be peeing all the time.
Here, we're going to do a little math real quick. Okay.
We're pulling
gonna
up the
say-
calculator.
Yeah, we're pulling up the calculator. We're going to say this is a medium bodied roast. It's got 150 mgs of caffeine times 12. So we're looking at 18,000 mgs of 1,800 mgs of caffeine. Okay? That's what we're looking at for if you're drinking 12 regular size cups of coffee.
And MIGs, for people that are not versed in Sydney, is milligrams, I assume?
Yes. Yeah. Versed in Sydney. They should be versed in Sydney by now.
I've never heard you use that phrase before, so.
I have. Definitely have. We'll find it.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that consuming a lot of cups of coffee, aka caffeine for this purpose, can cause some issues.
Yeah.
And for those who are regularly consuming, stopping abruptly can lead to symptoms of withdrawal.
Oof.
So there's things like headaches, fatigue, depressed mood.
Mm-hmm.
So determining how much is too much caffeine for you is a really important thing. A moderate amount of caffeine for one person may feel like a really high dose for someone else.
Fair, yeah.
That's because people metabolize caffeine faster than others. So there's a bunch of factors in there, but one of the reasons is, depending on how much you weigh, what medications you might be taking, how much activity you usually do, that can affect how quickly you metabolize it. For those of us who, have ADHD, which I am one of, might be using caffeine in a way that is similar to taking a medication. Many of the ADHD medications are stimulants. So things like Ritalin and things like that. So we might be self-medicating a little bit with caffeine.
Yeah, fair.
So I always like to joke, like, I can drink caffeine just about any time, but that's because I have a disorder.
Body composition.
Yeah. I have a disorder that helps me use caffeine to focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay, so coffee has become more than just a beverage, more than just a pick-me-up. It's a lifestyle. And I feel like Sydney can attest to this because it's about 90% of her personality.
I do not have a coffee plant tattooed on my arm.
Yeah. Coffee shops often serve as workspaces or social hubs, and the act of enjoying a cup of coffee is intertwined with relaxation and leisure. American coffee culture is diverse and has evolved over the years. It's characterized by a love for coffee that spans a wide range of styles and preferences. You might like a diner style setting.
There's a good, the good diner style mugs.
Yeah, it's my favorite mug.
Yeah, see?
I use it every day. I've had it for years.
That's supposed to be chain, not chair. I don't know why else is chair.
I read it as okay, so I interpreted, so the phrase I'm looking at on my computer is chair coffee shops instead of chain coffee shops. And I interpreted that. I just assumed that was supposed to be what you wrote.
Oh.
And I interpreted it as like a cozy coffee shop where you would like go in and there's like comfortable chairs and you sit and you relax and like hang out with your friends or whatever.
I love that. I think we should.
Right?
Yeah, we're gonna coin that. The coffee shop I open, it's gonna be called Chair Coffee.
So you could enjoy chain coffee stores, coffee shops.
Thinking like your Dunkin' Donuts, your
Starbucks.
yeah.
And then there's, I think, some of our favorites, craft coffee roasters and your local shops, which are usually a little more unique and funky, which we love. And then, of course, there's the basic white bitch, cold brew and iced coffee.
Yeah, which I feel like has really grown in popularity over the last several years. Here in America, I know that, it's pretty common in Europe, Italy, those kinds of places. They would brew a shot of espresso and over some ice on a hot day, and there you really got something.
Right? I love it. I love
So-
a nice coffee in the afternoon,
Oh yeah,
in the summer,
so
not in
good.
the winter.
No, can't do it. Okay. So, as I just alluded to, coffee culture varies really significantly around the world. So, what you experience here in the US is going to be different from what you experience, say, in France, or what you experience in some Arabic countries, or even in like some of the Asian countries. So, it's going to reflect more local traditions, the social practices of that culture, and like just regional preferences. So like even in, say one region of Italy might be very different from the next region of Italy.
Yeah.
So I used Italy as a perfect segue into my next statement, which is, I don't know if you've ever been to Italy, but espresso culture is the epitome there. Like it reigns supreme.
Okay.
So espresso bars are social hubs where people stand at the counter. They are sipping their coffee and engaging in conversation.
Awesome.
And then like pivot to someplace like a Nordic country where like Sweden and Norway, they also have a really strong coffee culture, but it's more focused on like lighter roasts and like quality. And in Swedish, I know we've talked about this before. I never know how to pronounce it. I'm going to go fika. Fika?
I would have gone fika.
We should look on Google. We should have Google
You really should
say
tell
it
us
for
that.
us. Is the tradition of taking a break to enjoy coffee and pastries, emphasizing on relaxing and like socializing.
Love that.
Yeah, it usually happens in the afternoon. And then you have places like Turkey where the preparation of the coffee is considered like an art form. Like that's part of the whole experience of drinking your coffee is actually preparing it. So I don't know if you've ever seen like Turkish coffee prepared.
Yeah.
Good friends of ours brought back a Turkish coffee maker for me. And it's like a finely ground, unfiltered, usually sweetened and flavored with like cardamom, and it's delicious.
Love that.
Yeah. And it has like this whole ritual around it with like traditional coffee houses being really like important social spaces. And it's really, really cool. And
That's
then you
awesome.
like swap, and you have places like Vietnam, which has also a really unique coffee culture with big emphasis on using things like condensed milk and ice.
Ooh.
Yeah. And num 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 nums. Like a popular Vietnamese coffee drink includes an egg coffee.
Yeah, this is where you lost me.
Yeah, so the egg coffee is made with whipped egg yolk and sweetened condensed milk custard. And the custard is poured over a cup of very strong coffee and stirred together. It makes it really like frothy. It's kind of like, think about when people use egg white in like cocktails and they mix it really hard and it makes it really like frothy. Same kind of concept.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
We're drinking very different cocktails.
Well, and then, places like Africa, Ethiopia, for example, is considered the birthplace of coffee. And the coffee ceremony is like a very significant cultural practice.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk a little bit about this is because like caffeine, traditionally, we thought of it in the forms of coffee or tea.
Right.
And both of those things have big cultures around them and are very like, there's tea houses. Like that's usually what we think of when we think about consuming our caffeine, or at least I think the majority of us do.
Yeah, I think so too. But coffee and tea aren't the only way to get a caffeine fix anymore. Yeah. Synthetic caffeine sources are increasingly available through energy drinks and other supplements. Synthetic caffeine, or artificial caffeine, refers to caffeine that is synthesized in a laboratory as opposed to being naturally occurring in plants like coffee beans or tea leaves. Generally, artificial caffeine is chemically identical to natural caffeine and is commonly used in various food and beverage products. The body processes both types of caffeine in a similar manner, and they produce similar stimulant effects.
They do. So it's one of those things where it's like, you know, people I think are probably going to be thinking to themselves, like, is one better for me than the
Right.
other?
Yeah, as we do.
And we process them pretty similarly. I think we're going to go into it a little bit about,
Of course we are.
It's the thing about, like, what is it also mixed with, right? Like,
Right.
it's not just about the caffeine.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I think the most common thing is going to be the rise of the energy drink.
Right, yeah.
And this has really been something that's been super noticeable over the past like couple of decades.
Mhm.
I would say our modern lifestyles have really increased our demand for like convenience type things.
What?
And so like that's part of the energy drink kind of rise to popularity, because
Yeah.
like as we talked about earlier, you know, there's a lot of cultural things, but most of those things, like when you're sitting down at a coffee shop, if you're going to an espresso bar, like all of those things, there's like an element of just like patience and waiting and time.
Brewing the coffee.
Brewing the coffee, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's not quick to make Turkish coffee. It's
No.
delicious, but it's not quick. The same with Vietnamese. Like there's a multi-step process.
Yeah.
And
Even if
so-
you're making it at home,
yeah.
waiting for water to boil, waiting for your coffee pot to finish brewing. Like, yeah, you've got to wait for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that element of like taking a deep breath and waiting for your coffee. We tend to like things very much on the go.
I want it now.
And so I think that's like why the numerous amounts of energy drink brands have come to market. And they all offer kind of like slightly different formulations and flavors and marketing approaches. But they all use the same thing. Caffeine. Like that is their bread and butter. That's what they're selling. It's like a quick source of caffeine. So here's where, from up above, energy drinks tend to have a higher caffeine content.
Oh, okay.
And so when we're talking about people drinking, 12 cups of coffee, if you look, a typical can of, I'm not going to say a brand because I don't know all the different brands and what their like actual milligrams are, but on average, energy drinks have something like 400 milligrams of caffeine, opposed to a normal 8-ounce coffee has somewhere between 150 to 200. So usually double, but it looks a similar size to a cup of coffee, but they're doubling and sometimes tripling the caffeine content. So I think some of the issues that we've seen come about with like higher anxiety and some of those issues that people are like, oh, caffeine's bad for me and it's doing these things. It's like, well, what form of caffeine are you consuming?
Yeah.
Because not only do the energy drinks typically have this higher caffeine content and are often marketed to enhance like mental and physical performance, they also use other ingredients that do the same things of like mental acuity and some of those things. So yeah, I'm gonna throw out a couple because they've done some really good marketing.
Okay.
And that has also given way to the rise of the like energy drink movement. So if you think of something like Red Bull, I would say they're probably one of the most iconic energy drinks.
Yeah. It gives you wings.
It gives you wings. They made sure to pay like sports, like extreme sports athletes to drink this. It's got that really sleek can. It's very like eye-catching. It's like silver and the blue and like, yeah.
You know the commercials even if you don't drink it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they've done a really good job. But the thing is, it also contains vitamin B, taurine. So like it has other ingredients besides the caffeine that also give you energy.
Ooh.
And so, yeah.
That's a lot of energy.
That's a lot of energy. And people are getting a little cray-cray.
Yeah.
Another one I would say is like 5 Hour Energy with that really unique 2-ounce like shot style.
Really appeals to the early 20s college student.
They're very inconspicuous, gives you a boost. So it also has caffeine. It also has B vitamins. They use amino acids in theirs. And so these things are really appealing to like young adults and adolescents because, one, they have really good marketing strategies.
Yeah.
They see their friends using them, and then they don't really know the knowledge of like potential harmful side effects. They just like are like, okay, it gives me energy, it gives me clarity, I can get a lot of shit done.
Yeah. My friends all do it.
And my friends all do it. And like it looks cool when you're carrying around a can of Red Bull or like popping a shot of 5-hour energy.
I mean, I guess.
I mean, I'm not a big energy drink person,
Yeah.
but I know a lot of people are, and I know a lot of friends that are. Yeah, it's really interesting, the rise of the energy drinks.
So maybe just one energy drink
Yeah,
in lieu of coffee.
in lieu. And that's the thing is like where I think people are like doubling down.
Yeah.
Like they're so used to having their Red Bull at like however many milligrams, double the, and then they're like, why isn't this coffee strong enough? Why isn't the coffee working?
The coffee is working.
You've built up a tolerance.
But now you need the 12 cups because you've.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so rough. All right. So in a survey of college students, 51% reported consuming at least one energy drink in a month, which, I mean, okay. I mean, that seems moderate if you're having one in a month. But like, as we know.
One. Yeah. And so the other, 49% are having coffee?
Yes, just coffee all day. They're 12 cups of coffee. So the most common reason reported for using energy drinks is, of course, insufficient sleep because they're in college.
Yeah. So
that's
it's
all
one
I
of
got.
those things where it's like, putting the cart before the horse of like, oh, instead of trying to work on my sleep health and habits, I'm just going to consume more caffeine to give me a pick-me-up, which then, if depending on when you're having that caffeine, and if you don't know how quickly you metabolize your caffeine, you just get into like this loop.
I mean, to be fair, they are college age. So assuming that they are in their late teens, early 20s, they're babies. They don't know.
They don't know. They don't know.
Those poor little brains are not fully developed and they are just bombarding them with caffeine.
Yep.
Oh, poor things. Okay, so it's important to remember that caffeine is considered a drug. It belongs to a class of substances known as psychoactive drugs, which are chemicals that affect the central nervous system and alter brain function. Those poor little adolescent brains. Unlike many other drugs, caffeine is legal and socially acceptable in most cultures. Caffeine addiction, also known as caffeine dependence, occurs when a person develops a physical or psychological reliance on caffeine. And then you stop and get those withdrawals.
Exactly.
It's a rough time.
It is rough. So we are not professionals in addiction.
No.
We obviously do have some experience with consuming caffeine.
Yes.
So if you feel like you do have a dependence on caffeine, or maybe you're kind of on that tipping edge of like, maybe I'm addicted to caffeine, one of the things we would recommend is, one, seeking professional help if you do feel like that this is something that is impacting
a problem.
Your life in a very negative way. Also consider, don't be one of those people who's like, I'm just gonna stop drinking coffee.
Oh, not gonna be fun times for you, friend.
Yeah, you have to reduce your intake gradually rather than quitting, very abruptly. And it will help minimize some of those withdrawal symptoms. Also, staying hydrated with water.
Actual water.
Actual water. will help to alleviate some withdrawal symptoms as well. And I mean, water is great for your overall health. So we could all be drinking more water.
And if you're drinking that much coffee, you're probably not drinking enough water.
Probably.
Yeah.
And another way that you can do it is making sure that you're keeping track of your caffeine consumption, especially like when during the day you're consuming, or what things are prompting you to consume coffee. Is it, I'm bored, I'm feeling sluggish? Is it the 4 p.m.s, like all of those kinds of things? So you can start to figure out and be like, oh, is it that I drank coffee all morning and I haven't had a sip of water and now I'm really sluggish at 4 p.m.? Like maybe what you need is water, not more coffee or caffeine.
Yeah. You can also opt for decaffeinated coffee and tea. I know that's kind of a dirty word in the coffee drinker world, but you can drink decaffeinated coffee or tea and have that same kind of psychological like habit of drinking your hot beverage.
Yep.
It's always helpful when setting a goal to share with friends or family, people who can offer support and encouragement as you try to reduce your coffee or caffeine intake. You can also try to find alternative ways to boost your energy, like regular exercise, a balanced diet, and sufficient sleep.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yep.
And of course, like Sid said, if you're trying this and you're finding it really challenging and difficult to manage your caffeine consumption by yourself, consider seeking advice from a healthcare professional or a registered dietitian.
Yeah, absolutely. Caffeine is generally considered safe for most people.
Yes.
In moderate amounts. So excessive consumption can lead to negative health effects, and one of those primary ones, and I think this is the big thing for me, is it does affect people's sleep. And sleep is the basis. It is the foundation for all kind of like positive health and wellness things. Yes. If your sleep sucks, everything else sucks. So when you can start to figure out ways to improve your sleep, other things will fall into place. That includes your diet, your ability to exercise, your ability to regulate moods. Like there's so many things that are impacted by sleep, and we know that caffeine for a lot of people impacts their sleep.
Yeah.
So make sure that you are being really mindful of like when you're doing that intake of caffeine, and make sure that you're like factoring in your own personal tolerances, the things you have going on in health conditions. Like one of the things that I noticed recently is I was drinking a lot of coffee because my mental health was not in a good spot. And so like I got into this little loop. I love coffee.
Oh, yes.
But I don't need it. I have dramatically cut back. You will be very happy to know that I consume 2 8-ounce cups of coffee. And that is it.
Good for you.
Yeah, I have the 2 before I leave the house. And I was like, I noticed some things and I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a goal for January of I'm not going to buy coffee out. I'm not going to bring coffee with me, because I would have my 2 cups of coffee and then I would fill my 20-ounce Yeti and take it to work with me.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, so I stopped doing that. So it's just those kinds of things, like making sure that you know why you're consuming coffee and caffeine. And then if it's for, to mitigate some of these other health issues and things that you're feeling, maybe we start to look at those things versus let's just consume more caffeine.
Fair enough.
I mean,
fair enough.
Just something to think about. Just throwing it out there for you all. Amber, any last things about coffee, caffeine, tea? You gonna cut back?
No, I think I need to go make a cup.
I mean, I'd love one. All this talk about coffee has made me like, I'm like, my mouth is watering. I'm like, ooh, a cup of coffee sounds so nice, because there is that ritual of it. Like, right. I love sharing a cup of coffee. Like, I think if somebody was like, beer, wine, spirits, coffee, which one would you choose? I would choose coffee. Because, like, I feel like and we're jumping ahead. This is another episode coming up. But there's appropriate times when you can drink beer, wine, spirits.
Yeah.
And then the majority of the time it is not appropriate. But you can have a cup of coffee during those times.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So there we are. Caffeine. It's in a lot of places. Be sure you know how much you're actually drinking a day.
Good point.
It is a good point.
All right.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.